Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Beard Blather 233. Holy crap. For, of course, August 17, 2024. Today's title, Banalità fascista, or, in the language of the bard, Fascist Bromides. This week, we have gone from worst decisions to mask dropping. Unable to maintain radio silence anymore, the Harris campaign had no better idea than to have its lead moron remove any doubt as to her intellectual acumen. And she did it in a high school gymnasium in Wake County, North Carolina, with some 50 journalists and all of 150 folks together that they managed to gather under one roof, including campaign staffers, school janitors, and relatives. And we're being generous. The Wonder Valley girl from hell gave us her much anticipated policy spiel. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Nothing but a loosely tied together with a basting stitch and some spit. The woman who made inflation exponentially worse 2 years ago will now bring prosperity to the U.S. by having government corporations and labor work together to implement regulations, control salaries and prices, jail those engaged in price gouging, which she misstated as price gauging.
Yes, I heard that.
Yeah, we're going to hear it again later, as if it was some kind of price measurement, and stimulate the economy by buying votes left and right. Mortgage giveaways, loan cancellations, government payments galore, all supported on the backs of the working stiffs of America. Never mind that not one of these banalities is new. What she did not steal from the Trump campaign, say, no tax on tips, she borrowed from the Biden administration, like the Price Gouging Prevention Act of 2022. She's promising to create new legislation that is identical to the one that she voted for 2 years ago. I guess she was too drunk to remember. In other words, her solution to America's economic ills is to impose the same fascist legislation she and her senile boss imposed on us already in 2022. Brilliant. Where did we see all of this crap before? Here, Charter of Labor of the Fascist State, 1927. And for those of you who are curious, there's a link in the description. Article 7. The corporate state considers private initiative in the field of production the most efficacious and most useful instrument in the interest of the nation. Private organization of production being a function of the national interest, the organization of the enterprise is responsible to the state for the direction of its production. Reciprocity of the rights and duties is derived from the collaboration of the productive forces. And it goes on and on. Why bromides? Because this basic, sophomoric embrace of the fascist principles that have failed spectacularly every time they were implemented, done in a kindergarten level, do not amount to political thought. They are but a series of statements, often repeated and original, trite, and boring. Kamala Harris's collection of platitudes presented as a policy statement are the very definition of bromides. Fascist bromides, that is. In November, save America from the clutches of these retarded lowlives and boot the fascists out. This is Saul Montes Bradley, the largest human repository of useless information, back in Florida in my golden cage, together with Thomas Victor, my good friend from Mexifornia, trying to survive in the land of fruits, nuts, flakes, and norteño music. Holy crap. Like you didn't have enough shit before. How is it going, Thomas?
You forgot skyrockets.
Oh, God. Yeah, no. I didn't.
Say something again.
I didn't want to give you or me a flashback.
No. They've been quiet for a few days. That's all I can expect now is a few days of quiet. But like I say, I watch a lot of police videos, and nothing's more depressing than a neighbor feud that's been going on for 20 years. And I'm just not going to be that guy. I'm going to move away, and not in the immediate future or anything, but when everything's finally tidied up, I'm going to abandon California like so many other people have. And this state is going to be people like Bill Maher, criminals, the welfare dependent, and illegals. Those are the people who are
fucking neighbors.
And my neighbors. And they're going to look around them at one day and go, how did this happen? Because they'll be surrounded by, I told you that my brother went to San Francisco several years ago. And this was when, like, the Market Street gentrification was still alive. It's no longer alive.
No.
And he walked like a block away from his hotel, and it was like a painting by Hieronymus Bosch. It was just like this teeming mass of insane homeless people, just all releasing bodily fluids in all directions. And that's what California wants to be. That's what it's going to be. I saw Don Lemon went to New Jersey and was interviewing people on the street. Who are you going to vote for, Trump or Kamala? And they all said Trump. And
did you notice Don Lemon trying to talk him out of it? And they were, no. Some were laughing in his face.
The guy who laughed in his face was when he said he was paying much more for groceries. And Lemon said, that's not true. The statistics show that the Biden economy is better than the Trump economy. And the guy laughed in his face and said, you've been watching CNN, haven't you? How could you tell somebody? Okay, I don't know if you know, Don Lemon was fired from Elon Musk's nascent TV channel, a streaming channel, before his show even aired. And so the contract is leaking out, and Lemon was going to get $1.3 million a year, plus, depending on the ad, he was going to get 60% of the ad revenue. He was going to get increased money depending on his audience size, starting at $250,000 for a certain amount of audience, $500,000, then $75 million, then another $1 million. And he demanded one of those hideous electric SUVs. So here's Don Lemon, who, unless he's an idiot, has already saved millions. He's already got millions in the bank, telling just some average Joe in New Jersey, you're not paying more for groceries. Are you insane? And it's just like,
haven't you watched my reports on the Biden economy? Somebody ought to give this asshole a utility bill enema.
Well, what Trump has been doing is he did a TikTok, and he did a full-on standalone presentation where he was surrounded by food items, and he was showing how much more expensive they were now compared to what they were when he was president. Has any presidential candidate ever done that? They haven't, have they?
No.
Exactly. So the Democrats are telling people, you're not paying more for food. I have a car problem, so I can't drive. Monday, I can drive, but I can't leave the car alone. I'll just leave it at that. And I'm going to drive the car to the dealership, and then I'm going to come back on by Uber or something. And I've run out of groceries, so I'm getting groceries from Amazon.com. Normally, I go to a store called Smart and Final, which is cheaper than other stuff, but it provides this. It has this proprietary product maker called First Street, and First Street products are very good. They're very affordable, and we're not getting paid for me to say that. So I bought the Amazon brand of fruit, frozen vegetables, and this little bag came. Normally I get 2 bags that last me, a couple weeks. This little tiny bag arrived. It's got 1 helping of frozen vegetables in it, and they're advertising, "Look how cheap we are." Yeah, because you gave me 3 mouthfuls of frozen vegetables that they were selling like instant coffee containers like this. I mean, it's amazing.
Remember when I used to tell you that one of the things that describe the quality of life in Europe as being quite substandard was the small size of everything in a supermarket.
Yes.
And I used to say in the US you buy olive oil by the gallon,
Mm-hmm.
and in a London supermarket you buy it by the 8-ounce bottle. Well, guess what? We're getting to the 8-ounce bottle now. We're gonna buy olive oil as if it were some kind of French perfume, and everything else in tiny sizes, because I don't know, it's healthier for you. These people are full of shit.
Well, we
And I can tell you, last year my maintenance in this building was $600 per month. Now it's $960 per month, and I had $25,000 in assessment for the year. Last year, my electrical bill in this apartment was $40 to $45 per month. This year is $120. At my house in Virginia, my electrical bill was $240 per month. Now it's $520.
yeah, I mean, here in California,
I'm imagining this, right?
here in California, I'm routinely getting $700 electric bills.
Yeah.
All I'm using is they send me robo messages warning me that if I don't turn down my air conditioner, they're going to hit me with
Penalty.
emergency prices or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's, fuck you, I'll pay it. I'm not going to sit here and sweat. But when I was in London, we spent the summer of 78, 75 in London.
Not much in the way of AC in London at that time.
No, and we'd go shopping, and my mother was looking for the shopping carts. There are no shopping carts. You did all your shopping with arm baskets.
Yeah.
Because everything was like the little one-shot booze bottles you get on the airplane.
Yep. And the tiny Coca-Cola cans?
Yeah.
Tiny ones are half a fucking glass?
No, she had 5 kids, so each of us would hold a basket. And it was a parade when we'd go and go to the cash register, and they'd be like, and the meats, they were like these little tiny portions, like for babies. So, and then here's Kamala saying it's price gouging. Price gouging is, I don't, okay.
There is no price gouging. When you take a look at manufacturers' prices, wholesale prices, retail prices, you realize that nobody's gouging. On the contrary, companies are desperately trying to delay raising prices, and as a consequence of that, your average supermarket in the U.S. has a profit margin of 1%. 1%.
Well, what I was going to say is that the only time you get price gouging is when you have absolute monopolies. If you have an absolute monopoly, then you can charge whatever you want because you can do that. Like 7-Eleven, they charge for what they say is convenience, but
yes,
they charge. you would pay $5. You would
They
pay
charge more.
$5 for a chicken salad sandwich, and the chicken salad sandwich was made with somebody opened a loaf of bread that they had delivered from a bread wholesaler. It was just bread. They glopped chicken salad on it that they made with wholesale mayonnaise, and
They actually bought the gallon of chicken salad
true.
from a
So
company like Cisco or something like that. Yeah.
right, so the I mean, okay, what people are doing now is they're opening fake restaurant services so they can buy at wholesale restaurant outlets. So they're that's how they're cheating, and it's you could argue that 7-Eleven, I mean now 7-Eleven I understand, but my city is saturated with 7-Elevens, so the whole, I mean, that's right up to the edge of price gouging. The instant coffee cost.
It still isn't.
What?
It still isn't. 7-Eleven, if you want to buy something a block away from your house at 2 in the morning, you gotta pay more.
Why?
There's a higher cost involved with keeping that thing open for you through the night.
Sure, but it's not proportionate to the cost of 7-Eleven. This is why it used to be, before the Biden administration, that buying a 7-Eleven franchise was it was lucrative enough that you could put your kids through college and all sorts
Not anymore.
Right, not anymore. So my whole point is that price gouging does exist, but it only exists in little tiny areas, and it's mostly a gray area. Like simply raising prices on something isn't price gouging.
No, that's my point. And you have to understand that whether you buy at a wholesale store or at a tiny little neighborhood grocery store, you're going to pay more for the smaller place closer to home. Period. End of story. They have a much larger incidence of overhead on that product than the wholesale store does. So you'll pay more, no question about that. You pay more for the convenience. We do call them convenience stores, don't we? But that's not price gouging. Price gouging is when there is a supply problem with gasoline, and this gas station that still has some gas in the tanks is charging you $20 per gallon because they can.
Well,
That's price gouging.
when 7-Elevens first opened, one of the selling points was cheap and fast food. So you would go in and get a skewer of chunks of chicken for, I don't know,
A hot dog for $1.
Yeah, those hot dogs cost like $5 now, and the chicken on the skewer is like $8 or $9. So, the whole thing is entirely the fault. It starts out with energy. So when the Biden administration went after the gas and petroleum industries, what they did was they set us on an unavoidable course to inflation. And I mean, they're idiots. As Kamala, CNN is going hog wild on the idiocy of Kamala Harris. And they're bringing on people explaining that, everything she's promising has been tried in Venezuela, the Soviet Union. It failed.
Or here 2 years ago.
Well, okay, she's going to build 3 million homes. And as somebody pointed out, they made the same sort of promise about electric vehicle charging stations. And at last count, the Biden administration had built 25 charging stations in the United States.
You like paying taxes through your nose so that we can have 25 charging stations nobody uses?
Yeah.
Look at this. This is literally what Biden-Harris did 2 years ago.
Well, okay.
Look at the name of this piece of legislation.
Right.
So they're not even copying Venezuela. They're copying themselves.
Okay. Can we get the votes?
What, on this shit?
Yeah.
Oh, God, no, I would have to look for them. I only got the report on what it is and what it says.
Okay, I know she was the deciding vote
on many.
On many that have caused the worst economic damage right now.
Well, if you want one such example, the poorly called, the deceivingly called Inflation Reduction Act.
Correct, that's the one.
1.7 trillion of subsidies to Democrats' friends and union friends. The ability for the government to negotiate prescription drugs to lower the price of drugs on all Americans, the whole thing is a lie.
Well, see,
number one, they didn't lower the price for all Americans. All they did was negotiate the price of 10 drugs, Medicare negotiating directly. Why the double lie? Number one, before this obscenity, Medicare did not negotiate for prescription drug prices because it didn't fucking have to. Because the administration of prescription drug programs was delegated to private companies that bid on it, insurance companies generally, that administered the prescription drug service. And they negotiated rebates and discounts so that the least price was not what they were paying. So that's lie number one. Lie number two, of the 10 prescription drugs that they just negotiated prices for, 7 have never been accepted by Medicare to begin with because they are cheaper drugs available in the market. So what they just did is give a couple of pharma companies a tongue kiss, a French kiss, by including these drugs into the allowed drugs, into the vademecum, actually, so that now their sales are going to go through the roof. Their revenues are going to go through the roof.
Right, and
you know how much they saved you or me or any other American?
Well,
zero. Zilch. Nada.
I have glaucoma and I have to take these eye drops 3 times a day. Prior to the Biden administration, I was taking very effective eye drops once a day. That medication went from $80 a month, which is a lot. They wanted to charge me $400 a month.
Ooh, lovely.
Normally, what my doctor does is he fights tooth and nail for it, and they just simply did not give it in. So I had to switch medication. I now have to take these 3 times a day. So if I'm ever planning to do something, I have to take my eye drops with me. That's all Biden. That's all Biden and Harris. And
but now, if that is one of the 10, the government will save a few bucks on it, not you.
Of course. I mean, people blame Big Pharma. Big Pharma does what Big Pharma does. It's the government that you should blame. There's people who think that Big Pharma is controlling the government. It's the other way around. The government controls everything. You simply don't understand that. There are government individuals such as Biden and Harris and Obama who must bow to the donors, but the apparatus of the government itself, they control everything. Our side has too many people claiming that the Russo-Ukraine war is some kind of racket manufactured by the American defense contract industry. As you and I have pointed out, their profit margin is across the board. It's closer to 3% than 4%, and never in the history of this country has the defense armaments industry started a war in order to get profits. I mean, in World War II, for example, they weren't paid shit for what they made.
Come on, and we needed at least a year into the war just to catch up.
And what's happening right now is, as you and I have pointed out ad nauseum, we're not sending pallets of cash to Ukraine. We're emptying our warehouses of obsolete junk.
War material decommissioned in the 90s.
Exactly, or failed. There's a armored personnel carriers can either be tracked or have wheels, and there's a wheeled armored personnel carrier that they basically put a tank turret on top, and it didn't work. So apparently we're going to give it to the Ukrainians because it didn't work. I mean, we made 105 of them, and they're just sitting somewhere rotting.
They're bad as shit, but they're better than the Russian crap.
Oh, of course. I mean, today the Ukrainians blew a giant hole all the way through Russia's most elite infantry, the 850th Naval Infantry Division, and these guys have a storied history going back, to the Tsarist days, and then they really hit their glory in the days of the Soviet Union, and the Ukrainians just ran them over. They had far more firepower, and they wiped them out. So Ukrainians are doing fine. The video evidence shows that they're using a lot of Western weaponry, but a hell of a lot of Russian and Ukrainian weaponry. I read somewhere today that the Germans are suddenly announced a massive budget cut, so they're not going to be able to give Ukraine any more weaponry, and I'll believe that when I see it. But it's the things that our side, not all our side, but too many of our side worry about are things that aren't really happening. And what we need to worry about is only one thing, which is to get out the vote. That's it. If we get out the vote, everything will be fine.
Oh yeah. And have you noticed how the doomsayers, it's all fixed, they are gonna steal it, why even bother? I have come out of the woodwork again. The Lynn Woods of this world are very active, trying to demoralize Republican voters so they don't even fucking show up. You know why they're doing that? Because they're afraid.
Yeah, and also there's a certain type of person who prides themselves on their cynicism. And cynicism is actually
healthy.
It's immaturity. Like there's rational cynicism, and then there's knee-jerk cynicism. When the Russians have an election and they say, "Oh my God, Putin won," you can be cynical and say, "Of course he did." I believe you.
Maduro won elections in Venezuela. No shit, Sherlock. Really? Wow, amazing.
Yeah.
But that you can get away with because it's true. Elon Musk is now having a spat with Brazil, and he's saying how the chief of the Supreme Court in Brazil, if he knew the story of Alexander, he wouldn't say some of the idiocies he says. And that's one of the idiocies is that he's the guy in charge. No, he's a guy Friday. But in any case, he's a guy Friday. He's the guy you sent to pick up the packages. The guy doesn't have any real power, but he is a good employee. And but the thing is, this is incompatible with a democracy. Brazil has to choose. What the fuck are you talking about? Brazil was never a democracy, you morons.
No, I mean,
Never. From Dom Pedro I, when the empire separated from Portugal until today, if there were 2 weeks of democratic government in Brazil, is 2 weeks too many.
well, who gives a shit about Brazil? What does it matter to us?
I don't.
I don't.
Well, it matters to Mas because he now had to up and leave and close his offices in Brazil because the Supreme Court was threatening to jail his employees if he didn't dox accounts. And
Yeah.
he said, fuck it, I won't do it. So, he lost some revenue. I don't think it's too much. I think in the big scheme of things, whatever money came out of Brazil is fucking pocket change. But that said, for him it's a problem. But my point is a different one. It's okay to be cynical when you're talking about Brazilian democracy because Brazilian democracy is a fucking contradiction in terms. It's not okay to pretend to be cynical when all you're doing is trying to manipulate public opinion and demoralize voters.
Well, also, there are countries that don't matter, and then there's countries that matter because of the concept. Sorry, the what the hell is it called? It's a CO. The anyway, it'll come to me in a minute. Ukraine matters not because of Ukraine itself, but because what Ukraine is doing.
Exactly.
Israel matters because of what Israel is doing, and I happen to think that Israel itself matters. As you and I have said, we support Ukraine, which doesn't mean we think Ukrainians are walking around with their halos and they're all saints. We don't believe that at all. Ukraine has still got a corruption problem. It's xenophobic, more so than you and I like. But the context, you have to look at the context of what Ukraine and Israel represent. So there's too many people on our side who say that we shouldn't have a dog in any fight around the world. Well, we tried that twice, and it led us into 2 world wars.
It's very simple, Thomas. As long as 5% of the world's population has the greatest fucking standard of living ever imagined by monkeys who came down the tree in a savannah in Ethiopia, because it produces nearly 50% of the world's output. If we cannot sell that product around the world, we're going back to subsistence farming, you morons.
Yeah, we're going back to pre-1917 United States. So
we're going back to pre-1775. Or if you want, we're going back to pre-1815.
Yeah, so how would you guys like to live that way? There's all sorts of living history reenactors on YouTube. There's a young woman who's exceptional, who basically shows how colonial women live. It's like you get up at the crack of dawn and you basically work your ass off until you fall asleep from exhaustion. You're cooking, you're cleaning, and you're washing. And then when you go to buy new food, groceries, you walk. And it's just like just showing how you cook a meal. And it's just like, holy God.
Yeah. Starting with a 2-mile walk to the river to bring the water.
True.
It's people have no idea. But the thing is, all of our comforts are predicated on our success in our ability to manufacture things and sell them around the planet.
Yeah.
And as long as we can continue with that trade, we're peachy.
Mhm.
If we allow sea routes to be closed, if we allow our client markets to collapse, then we're next.
Well,
It's as simple as that.
it's pretty interesting because I've been watching Israeli news reports and a few other foreign language news reports that I translate. Iran is terrified of taking part in any new attack on Israel because the Israelis have told them exactly what they're going to do, what the price Iran will pay. And as a result, all of Iran's proxies are getting really pissed off. They're starting to say, we're on the front line. We're the guys dying. The latest important Hezbollah commander was just tracked down on his bicycle and killed. And they're saying, all our commanders are being killed. We're being killed. You're doing nothing. You're sitting, fat and happy in Iran.
Yeah, marrying 9-year-old girls for a day.
Exactly. So this is really fascinating, and the great attack that Iran keeps promising hellfire from above, and it doesn't come, and
it won't.
It won't. Not to the extent. I mean, the grand attack of earlier was a flop. All of Hezbollah's elite units are slowly retreating from south of the Litani, and I say elite. It's elite for Hezbollah. So the Israelis have proven that they have a limit, and then when they start fighting, like to win, they show absolutely no mercy. I mean, killing Ismail Haniyeh, that was an act of incredible ballsiness. I mean,
yes.
that must have made Nasrallah, must have made him start
but
to.
I'll put it to you that on the contrary, they do show remarkable restraint.
Of course.
Even if I take the Hamas numbers, 40,000 people died in Gaza in the past week. Let's assume for 1 second that number is correct. Among the killed are 17,000 Hamas soldiers. 17,000. That means 23,000 civilians died in order to get 17,000 combatants. That is the lowest fucking ratio of combatants to civilians of any urban war in the history of mankind.
Well, and also, I mean,
with their numbers.
What's funny is there's no outcry around the world. Nobody gives a shit. A few years ago, 40,000 dead Palestinians. I mean, we wouldn't have heard the end of it. Nobody gives a shit.
Listen, 400,000 dead Syrians, nobody gave a shit either.
Yeah, but Palestinians used to have political value. They don't anymore. No. And I would be willing to bet anyone in my house that if I bothered to look at the casualty list, the number of military-age males would outnumber everybody else, 2 to 1, or maybe more. And the final thing is that Hamas proudly uses child combatants.
Yes.
And Hamas kills its own people. It locks them in buildings. It puts fake missile launchers on the building, or real missile launchers that are fired automatically. And then when the building is leveled or the launcher is struck, say goodbye to the civilians. So this is the bed that Hamas made. They were expecting global outcry. It ain't coming. It ain't coming. There are no marches in any Muslim world. Not even a place like Indonesia, where they regularly go nuts and start beheading non-Muslims. Hasn't happened. Nobody cares.
No.
And the Democrats...
Where are the protests in the so-called Arab street?
There are none. And the Democrats have set themselves up for a historic pratfall by having their convention in Chicago, which is already, it's all planned out, thousands, if not tens of thousands of pro-Hamas.
They expect 100,000.
Descend on Chicago and tear the place up.
Yeah, they're expecting 100,000.
Oh my God. Okay, let me just look something up.
By the way, these are the protests in the Arab world over the demise of Hamastan. There you go. That's how Arabs are protesting Israel.
Yep.
They're swarming in Chicago. The number of Antifas from all around the world that are swarming into Chicago as we speak is record. By the way, when you look for that, Thomas, Movie Time Blues says we should leave the UN and kick the headquarters out of the country. Why? It's good money coming into this country. And frankly, who the fuck cares? It's a debating club like any other. Just live and be.
I'm trying to find how many protesters there were at the 68 convention.
Oh, a few thousand.
That's what I thought.
A few thousand. He says, Scott is saying, just saw a picture of the DNC stadium. The logo still has a stylized E from the word Biden. Too late to change? Probably.
Oh, yeah.
Probably. But anyway, guys, don't get overly concerned with the UN here, the UN there. The UN is a sideshow. They have zero power. They have zero capacity to interfere anywhere. It is a fucking freak show. Enjoy it. Just the notion that Iran and Cuba are at one time or another heads of the committees on woman or civil rights. It's like, or human rights. It's like, give me a fucking break. It's more fun than a comedy club.
Wow, these articles are deliberately not stating the number of protesters. They're all mentioning the number of cops and National Guardsmen,
Yeah.
Secret Service agents,
But not the number of protesters.
Yeah.
No, you're going to have to dig in for a little while to find them.
No, because all these groups mentioned here is that, the yippies, there were like a few hundred yippies.
I think at the heyday, there were maybe a few thousand worldwide.
Yeah, I mean, the actual, holy shit, 250 picketers marched, and another 500 marching through the loop chanting, hey, hey, how many LBJ
How many kids have you killed today? Hey, LBJ. How many kids have you killed today?
Looks like about 1,000 protesters showed up
Yeah.
at, at the convention. So we're talking about. You said they're looking at 100,000.
Isn't that interesting? I think it's, of course, they gave permits to every pro Hamas. I fucking love. I don't know if you saw the posters inviting people to the big march, pro Hamas, pro Palestinian, anti Israel, and pro gay rights.
Pro who?
Gay rights is solidarity between Hamas and the LGBTQ community.
Yeah, I mean, see that's
I
like
mean, come on, these people ought to be not in jail, in an asylum for the permanently deranged.
this is Monty Python stuff. This is
Yes.
this is. I mean, I don't know. I just don't know what to say. Well, okay. I mean, the reason you have gays for Hamas is because they don't know the first thing about Hamas. And, one of the guys that Don Lemon interviewed said that he was going to vote straight Democrat, but he actually liked Trump better. And it was just like, okay, goodbye. You're beyond hope.
Yeah. No. It's and by the way, I don't believe any of the polls.
No,
I've been talking to people, lifelong Democrats, and everybody that I know, and nobody, but nobody, is in any way enthusiastic about Kakala. They're actually pulling their hair off.
well, I mean, this is just 2016 all over again.
No, it's worse. It's worse than 2015, 16 for the Democrats.
Polls. The polls all said Hillary was with. Remember, even on election night, she had a 98.8% chance of winning, and we saw.
Oh God, and 10 points ahead.
Yeah.
But you see, Hillary had constituents. Half of the party, perhaps even more, actually backed Hillary.
Mm-hmm.
Kamala has no constituents.
No, and she's busy.
Nobody gives a shit about her.
Well, she's busy alienating both the far leftists and the moderate leftists.
Yeah. And with these fascist things she just pulled, by the way, what time is it? We're here 48 minutes. In a couple of minutes, we're going to leave you boob, and we're going to go into the videos of Kakala. As a matter of fact, while we are having this interruption, people in YouTube, thank you for participating. Remember, we're not monitoring the chat there. If you want to participate in the chat, go down there to the link. You can see the full video at link. Click on it, come to Odyssey, and then you can participate in the chat. And one thing before I kick you out, guys. The reason we're not doing this in YouTube is because YouTube has never changed. And they look for every way to suspend, demonetize, or otherwise fuck with our productions. Down to spurious copyright infringement strikes, all of which I have won on appeal, but that is too much work, and by the time the monetization is resumed, it's too old, and it doesn't matter anymore, and they won. So some things, like what we're going to do now with the Kamala video, we cannot do in YouTube because it's not worth the trouble. So come over to Odyssey, and I'll see you here, I hope. And with that, good night, you boob.